Hello, everyone. Today I'd like to introduce you to the concept, as I call it, the toxic economy. And I know many libertarians or laissez-faire free marketers are not going to like what I have to hear. However, let me clarify a couple of things. One, natural laws do exist, inalienable rights do exist. Yes, they are simply enumerated by the state as a tool. I understand and agree with that. However, completely unrestrained capitalism or free market capitalism, however you want to describe it, is completely cancerous. But on the opposite side, I would like to agree that neoliberalism and communism and all these other economic systems are also equally as cancerous. I think that the best economic system is one where you take the very best from the free marketers, such as the absolute right of private property and the ability to trade and engage in the economy, and you take the best of the regulation from the opposite side and you combine them together and you come up to a third position economy. This, I think, is the fundamental difference between different sects on the right. The difference between libertarianism and right-wing socialism, for example, is this. Now, libertarians are right-wing because capitalism is an inherently hierarchical, competitive structure that is in complete opposition to left-wing politics. However, what libertarians lack is any semblance of order and authority. And if you understand the state of man, the naturally occurring laws of this earth and of human beings and how we behave and how we interact with one another, you'll understand that order and authority is paramount in the maintenance of a society, and in particular an industrial society. You must use reason and objectivity to put limits before this toxic economy collapses your civilization. Now, the very worst of this is the desires of the average populace, the consumerism of the masses. And this is because we end up in situations like we find ourselves in today. Mainly, we have outsourced our economy, we have destroyed the planet with overproduction, and people are essentially slaves to the debt-backed financial system that we have. Essentially, people are buying crap that they don't need with money that they do not have. Not only have we enslaved our children with immeasurable debt, but we have taken resources away from them, mainly through overconsumption. Now, as it's widely known, if every person on the planet lived like the average person in the United States, we would need 3, 4, or 5 Earths to compensate for the amount of resources that are extracted and used by these people. This, to me, is incredibly toxic, not just for the environment, but for the next generations and for the people who are alive today. It's pure hedonism, individualism. It's this sort of liberal value system, the consequences of which are going to be grave. Now, free marketers, sort of capitalists, like to assume that because an economy is thriving, because people are rich, because we have a high amount of disposable income or anything like that, that is somehow a sign of success. This material valuation of a society is extremely toxic. Because at what cost, what price did you have to pay in order to achieve this wealthy, highly advanced society? Was it worth it? And my evaluation is no, it has not been worth it. And really, it's because of my personal opinions on being frugal. If I cannot afford to buy something outright, that is to say with cash on hand, I'm not going to take out a loan to purchase it. Now, the only exception to this, because of how shit our current financial system is and how inflation has killed all of us, you have to take out a loan to purchase a vehicle or to purchase a house. Expenses like this are just not available for the average person to buy outright with cash. If I personally want to purchase something, I have to save up for it. I'm not going to splurge. I'm going to carefully, strategically plan about how I'm going to acquire this good. For example, my cell phone, I had a lot of money saved up so that I could purchase a phone that would last me many years. And I ended up purchasing it. It's great. It still works. I've had it for many years now. But most people nowadays, in particular with cell phone companies, they take out loans in order to purchase the phone and end up, in the end, overpaying by several $100s just to get access to that thing. and these extremely toxic contracts that these cell phone companies put you in, where it says, hey, you can get a new phone every year, except it's going to cost a goddamn arm and a leg, and your monthly bill is going to double or triple the more times that you buy into this contract. And so many people wonder, well, how do people get into massive amounts of credit card debt? Well, this is exactly why, because they don't think about it. Their primary concern is to consume, to be hedonistic, to just submit to their base pleasures. Now, it's not just capitalism that has allowed us to fall victim to this type of mentality. It's many other cultural reasons as well, but it has allowed us to accelerate this process to a great extent. Now, an economy cannot solely rely on its financial sector, its investment sector. You have to produce things. Now, unlike communists, I don't see labor as the ultimate form of this sort of this ridiculous notion that you can just pay people with labor tokens or something like that. But your economy needs to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining, because as we've seen in the United States, for example, we've outsourced all of our productive capabilities. It all exists in China, in Korea, in Japan, and various European countries. What do we even produce anymore? Well, I can tell you what we produce, and it's mostly very extremely advanced technologies. But the problem is that most people in the United States do not have access to this technological prowess. They do not have the intelligence or the education to enter into these fields. And in fact, the technological marketplace is oversaturated because there are too many people pursuing these jobs, and we are allowing too many people from other countries who possess these skills to come in. It's the outsourcing of labor, essentially, through immigration. But now I want to point you to a particular economic practice that I think is very disturbing, and that is the accelerated decline of our economy through the invention of the internet. And if you're not familiar, there is a concept or a business strategy called drop shipping. And to me, this is the most egregious violation of basic economic laws of self-sustainability, really. It's a practice that relies almost exclusively on the outsourcing of production to third world countries, while at the same time indulging in the hedonism of many first world people. But if you don't know what dropshipping is, let me give you the basic gestalt on this business practice, let's call it. So a customer, a consumer in the first world, wants to procure an object of some kind. Let's say it's a sewing machine, okay, a little sewing machine. So they go online and they look at this website, and they have sewing machines that are $100, and they look to be of reasonable quality. They're not from a name brand, but hey, it's $100, you get your sewing machine. So they go on there and they click order, they put on their details, and they pay the website company, whatever, to buy the sewing machine. So now what the company that's selling this sewing machine will do is that as soon as they place the order, the customer places the order, they do not go to their stock in the back and then box it up and send it to them. No, what they do instead is they go to a Chinese third world retailer that sells the sewing machine for like $20. They order one from there, it ships to them, they put it in a box, they slap $100 price tag on it, and then send it to the customer that ordered it, essentially profiting however many dollars. It's say like a $50 profit off of that. Now essentially the company is just a middleman for this third world cheap plastic crap. The company is not actually producing anything of any value. They are simply a mediator between a consumer and the producer that's overseas. And you would be amazed at how many people engage in this. Someone will go through something like Alibaba or Amazon. They'll go to a wholesaler and they'll buy, 100 cheap plastic whatevers. Let's say water bottles. Okay, cheap plastic water bottles from China. They'll order them. They'll come in. They'll slap, a 30-cent sticker on it, and then they'll put it up on their website or their whatever their electronic storefront is, and they'll say, hey, I'm selling my custom branded water bottles for, $35 or $34.99 or whatever. So essentially they're making these huge profits off of this cheap Chinese crap, and they're just flooding our countries with this garbage. They're not actually producing anything here in the United States or in the other first world countries. They're just importing this crap. And this is the problem with consumerism. How much like cheap knickknacks do you fucking need? how much of this stuff is so low quality that you end up just chucking it in the trash like a month or two later, which of course goes back to the environmental situation that we find ourselves in, where there's, floating piles of garbage the size of France in our oceans. Now, of course, in the laissez-faire economic theory, this is perfectly justified. And when I say things like that, people seem to assume that, oh, well, you must be a communist. If you're not a capitalist, you're a communist. Well, how about instead of either of those extremes, we take a step back, look at this, and make a measured response to the horrors of both of these economic theories? Why can't we take a step back and take a measured response, take the best from both, and combine them together into a new economic theory? But the explanation of that new economic theory I'll leave to another video, or perhaps even a live stream. Thanks for watching.